Support WrestleTalk!
Give us a subscribe.
It's the WrestleTalk Podcast Wrestler of the Year Awards 2022. I am Luke Owen, DAD. I'm joined by Chopper P. Quinnell.
Hi.
And I'm joined by Oliver Davis. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining me today for this very prestigious award ceremony that we have here on the WrestleTalk Podcast channel / WrestleTalk channel. This is our 5th Wrestler of the Year Award. Previous winners include 2017 Kazuchika Okada.
He's all right.
2018 Hiroshi Tanahashi.
All the this is before Tempest even joined.
Yeah.
These were basically just yours.
Oh.
So yours was in 2017. That was your Wrestler of the Year. 2018 was me, you, and Laurie deciding between the three of us. And I was really pitching for Walter to win, and you overrode us and said Hiroshi Tanahashi.
Yeah, right decision that year.
2019 was again the same format, and it was Will Ospreay that won that year.
Yeah.
I know him.
Yeah.
And then 2020 was when we switched things up and we got website writers and wrestling influencers and the editors and everyone to pile in their nominations, and that is how we get our awards. 2020 was won by Drew McIntyre, and 2021 was won by Bryan Danielson. So those are previous Wrestlers of the Year. We had 34 nominations submitted, or 34 submitters. The way that it works is that they tell me their top 5 Wrestlers of the Year. The wrestler ranked number 1 gets 5 points. Wrestler number 2 gets 4 points, and so on. So I've got everyone's total scores totaled up. Just missing out on the top 10 spaces. So I want to give a shout out to these because joint 14th was Becky Lynch and Jamie Hayter, and they got 5 points each in their nominations. And the only reason I wanted to make note of that is because they did get more nominations than Mike Bailey, Logan Paul, Dustin Rhodes, and LJ Cleary, who all got 5 points from one top-level nomination.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so Dustin Rhodes, with his obligatory 5 points every year.
It's Dan. Yeah.
He's been injured most of the year.
Wrestler of the Year, though.
Yeah, and Mike Bailey was Tempest.
Yep.
Well, he's been fantastic.
Which is fair.
Yeah, it is. Penta L0M came in 13th with 6 points. Cody Rhodes came 12th with 10 points.
Yeah, but he was hardly... You know, he had what?
Wasn't
He had
that
the great
features?
ladder match with Sammy Guevara. Then he put himself through a flaming table. I think that was this year. And then... Yeah, it was, right?
Was that
that
this
was
year or
his
was that last
that
year?
was
I
his
think that
last
was it.
match, I think.
Was it?
No, I think that might have been last year.
Was it against Andrade?
Yeah.
Oh, well. And then that Seth... Well, he had the 2 Seth Rollins matches.
3 Seth
Three
Rollins
Seth
matches.
Rollins
3
matches.
Seth Rollins
Including the
matches.
Hell in a Cell one.
Yes.
Which, by everyone's estimations, was a banger.
Yeah,
with
did
the
really
purple
well.
titty.
Absolutely. Also missing out on the top 10 with 15 points, Dax Harwood.
Oh, he should have been in there.
I thought he was going to be in the top 10 for sure.
Yeah.
Is that because
Great year.
were people voting for Dax and FTR?
No, it was purely Dax Harwood was getting the nominations. There were no Cash Wheeler or FTR noms. So it was just purely Dax.
I think I voted for FTR.
Well, you shouldn't have done because it does say on the form that wrestlers
Single
are
wrestlers
single
only.
wrestlers. I think I might have just given your points to Dax. But yeah, I
It was
thought
for cash.
I thought he was going to make in, and I think he would have done had he got more TV time. Because remember, like he was off, they were off TV for ages. They just weren't being booked in tag. That's why he cut that promo at Royal Quest, being like, "Hey Tony, book us,
Book
brother."
me.
Excellent matches there against
Oh, yeah.
Adam Cole, was CM Punk against Cash.
Yeah,
That Owen Hart tournament match.
Yeah.
It was
absolutely.
worth it.
So into the top 10 we go.
Ooh.
In 10th place, with 17 points across 6 nominations and 1 top level nomination, last year's number 1, Bryan Danielson, falls to 10th place.
He started the year off great with that match against Hangman, but then a match against Moxley, matches against Jericho, but he's just not had that main storyline for himself.
I think the JAS, the never-ending JAS Blackpool Combat Club feud hurt him. Not having the Zack Sabre Jr. match at Forbidden Door, I think, hurt his chances as well. He was off TV for a little bit. And you're right, like I think that being his only story he's had this year has really hurt him in the nominations.
He's still just as good a wrestler as he was before. He's just not been featured as prominently.
Yeah.
Therefore, it's lower nominations. It makes sense.
To me, though, that's a significantly dropped ball by AEW. He came in hottest thing in wrestling at
Dude,
the end of August.
When
September.
we get to the end of this, boy, have I got some stats that are not shining of all Elite Wrestling.
Yeah.
In 9th position, with 20 points across 5 nominations and 1 top level, returning to the top 10, he was 10th in 2020, Chris Jericho.
One of the best years of his career, if not the best year.
I think so. I think he's had an amazing year in 2022. I've been saying on the Content Club, I think he was going to do really well in nominations this year because he, particularly after Brawl Out, felt like it was his mission to go out and just have the best TV match every week.
Mm-hmm. The start of the JS faction, great idea. The whole Ring of Honor, I'm going to destroy each one of them. Fantastic storyline. Probably like the best thing in AEW when that started. But during that time also, he was having the best match every week on AEW TV. That Ishii match, the Dalton Castle match, the Claudio matches. Yeah.
I think the Kingston match at Revolution.
The Kingston match.
Kingston at Revolution.
Right
That was going to be my thing. Yeah, right at the start of the year. Because that, I think, was one of the better matches, or at least the most like memorable stories of the year that AEW have done. Huge culmination, huge babyface win for Kingston. That is a great match.
Yeah.
And Blood and Guts itself, which he was a part of, was also fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just
Anarchy in the Arena.
Yeah, Anarchy in the Arena was a lot of fun. Yeah, absolutely.
I loved it.
Up next, in joint 7th place, both earning themselves 24 points each. So I'll read them out individually. Will Ospreay and Bianca Belair.
Oh, okay.
So Will Ospreay got 8 nominations, 2 of which were top level. This is the first time he's been in the top 10 since he won it in 2019. And Bianca Belair got 10 nominations, 1 of which was top level, and she's fallen from 5th in last year's rankings.
Yeah, I mean, Bianca Belair, unfortunately, just doesn't inspire me much at the moment. I think she's a one-dimensional character. I don't think her matches have been blow-away good. But she's held the championship all year?
Aside from the Becky match at WrestleMania.
That was a great match.
I think that was a really great match. But I think that's arguably her only great match this year. And the rest have been like, she's good. She's a consistent good.
She is always consistently good.
Yeah.
What is this? The PWI 500 is a kayfabe list, so I had to remember what it was called.
Yeah, she's been champion for most of the year. Always featured on Raw, and is always like a very reliable hand on Raw as well, I would say. And I think that might be why she's fallen from 5th from last year's rankings to 7th this year.
Ospreay, though, fantastic year. Like, I haven't seen all his matches because he has them all the time.
Yeah, so
but
many.
He's been having 5-star matches at your local indie every week.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think Meltzer was saying no one has had a more consistently high quality run over such an intense period of time as Ospreay ever in the history of wrestling. And he's number 7, joint with Bianca Belair.
Yeah.
Whereas when before this got all mid and you let everyone else in, he was topping the years.
Here's some stats for you. Will Ospreay in 2020 earned 9 points. And in 2021 earned 5 points. So this is his best year he's had since we've started this new way of doing things.
Well, he was also didn't get to do a great deal in New Japan. It's probably because of the AEW exposure.
I think that's what I think a lot of this is. Absolutely, yeah.
And I think that's why these nominations as a whole, and these awards are obviously very heavily weighted towards WWE and AEW because people haven't seen everything in the world of wrestling.
Yeah, which is why we open it out so it's not just us, it's the website writers, it's our editors, it's wrestling influencers across the board as well that we have to submit things to them. So we try to get a nice breadth of people getting across because otherwise it can get a bit sort of focused.
Insular.
Yeah, well, it was Okada, Tanahashi, and Will Ospreay. The first 3 years.
Yeah, but it was like, New Japan was at its hottest as well. It makes sense that they were going to be the ones who were winning things. At number 6, not only their debut in the... this is their debut in the top 10. In 2020, they earned 1 point. In 2021, they earned 3 points. This year, they have earned 25 points across 8 nominations, 3 of which top level, Seth freaking Rollins. Again, a guy, a lot like Bianca Belair, is a consistently good guy to have on the WWE roster. I actually said this on the Raw podcast that you and I did a few weeks back, that I think he does WWE main event babyface, that babyface style better than anyone else in the company. And he's also had a frigging great heel run this year. I think he's been great with promos. He is the most over person on that Raw roster. And the crowd have organically gotten into that theme song and have made that part of his aura and his presentation.
Yeah, I don't like this. I don't like this, Seth. I haven't really had a chance to say it because I've not been on the Raw podcast, but just doesn't do anything for me. I really enjoyed Cult Leader Seth. When a lot of people didn't, I thought he's just a laugh. He's just this. He doesn't sell things enough for me. In ring wrestling is fantastic, obviously, but he's always been like that. Yeah, I wouldn't put him up this high. I wouldn't even have him in my top 10.
Pete?
I think he's good. I like him. He had a great match with Reigns at the Rumble, and had a great match with Cody at Hell in a Cell. He also had a fight pit match, which,
I didn't love the fight pit.
Yeah,
it was okay.
It was okay.
It was fine.
I think the feud he had with Cody, I thought the 3 matches that they had, all 3 of them were brilliantly different. And you're right, that Reigns match, I think was an awesome, awesome match. It was the first time in ages that it felt like there was a chink in the Roman armor.
Absolutely,
there was a lot that yeah, exactly. And I think so for me, like the reason why Seth's done so well in the nominations this year has not just been his in-ring work. He has been consistently great on TV every single week and has gone from feud to feud to feud, which has felt like really good TV. This may not have been like the best stuff that WWE have done this year, although I thought the Roman Reigns feud was great and the Cody stuff was really good as well, just slightly dragged out. He has been one of the most consistent parts of WWE TV this year for me. In 5th place, not only their debut in the top 10, it's the first time he's been nominated since we started this new version of this. In fact, it's the first time he's featured in a top 10 list, in an end-of-year list, with 31 points across 10 nominations, 2 of which were top level. Sheamus.
Yes.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Great.
I'm behind that.
An absolutely stellar year for old Shamo this year. And you got to love it as well. I'm really pleased that he's got to have this year. And I think actually this for me is that actually it's a second half of the year thing. Because the Brawling Brutes were a bit of a punchline joke on SmackDown because it was Butch doing the Scrappy Doo thing and Rich Holland wearing a hat. And we're like, oh, this is the good old-fashioned Donnybrook. And you're like, oh, actually, this feels like really hackneyed and quite rubbish. I haven't said this because I did the SmackDown podcast. Michael Cole screaming Fight Night is worse than Boss Time. It's way worse than Boss Time. And I don't think that people were really into the act. But since Triple H has taken over creative, I think Sheamus has done nothing but banger after banger after banger. And he has been not just consistently great on TV, he's been consistently awesome on TV. Great promos, great matches, great presentation. I think this has been a great second half of the year for Sheamus.
Absolutely. And I think like you said, the initial start of the Brawling Brutes was a bit like, oh, this is a bit bad. But it was essentially when he started turning babyface a little bit. When the Brawling Brutes actually just got to go out and just fight and just be physical, because I think we already had teases of us starting to like Sheamus when he had his feuds with like Drew McIntyre. And we were like, oh, these matches are really, really cool. And then we just kind of did that. And then it was like, here's Gunther. And we go, yes.
Yeah.
And instantly, even though like he didn't have like any huge standout performances from earlier in the year, and it wasn't necessarily built to all that great, we just said, you want to see these two fight? We went, yes. And then it was amazing. It was honestly my match of the year was Gunther Sheamus at Clash of the Castle.
Yeah, the Sheamus has been an interesting one because when he first won the title and everything in the early teens, it was too soon. His character was never right. He was either like a one-dimensional babyface or a bit of a bully. But he's really had a proper renaissance in the last couple of years that started with that Drew feud, which was one of the best things in wrestling on Raw in the Thunderdome era. Those matches, they're fantastic. So it's nice to see that he's been allowed to be the badass older Sheamus we now know he could be. And I think we should make the most of it because I don't think he's got long left in the ring. He's always talking about how beaten up he is. I just feel like he's going to be one of those guys who retires early before that time. So, yeah, and Gunther Sheamus was so special.
Gunther, I'm just going to say now, not in the top 10. Yeah. In fact, Gunther only got 4 points across nominations this year, which I was really surprised about. I really thought he would do better.
Hopefully next year will be easier, especially if some of the rumors of like him versus Lesnar at Mania.
I think he's started so well on the roster though.
Yeah.
IC title reign is great and he's always having great matches on TV. Anytime he has a match, you're like, this is wonderful. This
Yeah.
is great.
He is someone who benefited from McMahon going.
Yeah,
Like,
100%.
Who benefited more?
Out of Gunther and Sheamus?
No, out of the
Anyone.
whole WWE roster from McMahon leaving. Obviously, Triple H.
Yeah, the fans.
Yeah.
But in terms of wrestlers,
in terms of wrestlers, yeah, you're right. Because I think Sheamus was always going to have a decent run because he's been there for so long.
Yeah.
But Gunther, like the report was, that McMahon was done with him.
Yeah.
McMahon was ready to just like bury him on TV,
Mhm.
especially after
Send him back to NXT.
Send him back to NXT, particularly after that July 4th thing
Mhm.
that he did with R-Truth. He was like, "Yeah, I'm done with him. Not going to push him at all now." So yeah, he's benefited massively from Vince going.
Yeah.
In fourth place, with 35 points across 10 nominations, 2 of which were top level, climbing from 10th the previous year, the current AEW World Champion, MJF. Which is interesting as well, because again, gone for quite a large chunk of the early half of the year.
But when he was around, he's always the focus of everything and so good. His feud with CM Punk is so good.
That's what I think a lot. So you got the stuff with CM Punk at the start of this year, the Revolution match.
Yep.
Then you've got all the drama that came out around Double or Nothing, and then he came back the Casino Ladder match, which I don't think people particularly loved. But a lot of people did. But a lot of people did like the stuff he was doing with Moxley and Regal, and now at the end of the year as champion, I think it's done a lot of wonders for him. Also, I think he's had really good matches in the meantime and all of that.
how many matches?
Well, the Punk match and the Moxley match.
He's had 2 Punk matches. He had the Wardlow match. He had the Moxley match. He just had the Starks match as we're recording this.
Yeah, and he lost to Sean Dean.
He's had 6 matches.
That's what MJF does.
It's mind blowing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that Wardlow match was just him being squashed, so it wasn't long. He's such a smart performer. He's so beyond his years that he can have so much of an impact with that little in ring time.
Mm-hmm. When I was watching the Ricky Starks title match, you get that real reminder. I was like, okay, because he doesn't wrestle often. When he does wrestle, you're like, oh yeah, he's really good. It's like a reminder every single time. You're like, oh yeah, no, he's one of these, a really good wrestler.
Yeah.
Because you do worry, he's the Miz. He can talk really well. Oh no, he can wrestle.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic, well deserved. He's the AEW World Champion, and next year will be his year. Maybe he'll be number 1 next year.
Maybe.
I think he might do really well next year.
Yep.
Speaking of doing really well, this is their 3rd year in the top 10, 2nd year in a row, placing 3rd with 45 points across 16 nominations, one of which was top level. The current Universal Champion, Roman Reigns.
Okay.
That's so interesting. Roman going more part-time. I think the caliber of his matches are very good. Whenever Reigns wrestles, it's very good. I think the stuff that's surrounding him might be better than Reigns.
Yeah.
I think all the stories involving the bloodlines surrounding Reigns are really good. And I think when Reigns is on TV, he is very good. His natural charisma and his backstage things that he's had on SmackDown are absolutely amazing. And his in-ring wrestling is undeniably very good. Maybe he does deserve the spot, I'm talking myself out of it now.
I think he does. So when I was watching SmackDown at home a couple of weeks back, I know it wasn't SmackDown, it was Survivor Series, when I was watching that before me and Ollie came in to review the show. My wife was in the room during one of the backstage segments, and she turned to me and said, he's the only good actor in wrestling. Because she thinks that backstage segments in WWE and AEW are really stilted. She finds promos very funny because it is people doing play acting tough. She can't stand John Moxley because she's like, I can see through the performance. But Roman Reigns, she says he's the only good actor in this wrestling thing that you enjoy. And for me, Roman this year, again, a guy who's benefited massively, I think, from Vince going and Triple H taking over.
Massively so.
I think it's been all character work this year, particularly in the second half. All the bloodline stuff is the best thing in the company. And the work he's doing with Sami, with Jay, with Solo, and Heyman, I think is amazing. And then I think he's having the better matches now than he was 2 years ago. The match with Logan Paul, I thought was awesome. I thought the match he had with Seth was great.
Yep.
I really enjoyed War Games. This for me, I think has been a really good year for Roman.
I cannot believe this after WrestleMania because we were like, they're gonna the Lesnar match. No one cared about it, and then they put both belts on him, and you're like, well, this isn't gonna last. And then you hear he's going part-time. Like, how can you do that to the company? So for him to be currently so beloved, despite all of those things we have been taught to hate over the last 5 years, part-time champions, consolidating the belts away from brands that need it.
Pushing Roman.
Roman.
Roman wins, LOL.
But he is perfect in his role, is staggering. I don't think there's anyone else who feels so big a star. He feels like the big boss all the time. Like if you look in AEW, MJF's fantastic. Kenny Omega always gets cheered. Chris Jericho is the demo god. But Roman is like, he feels like he's on another level. He is almost.
He's in Goddle mode.
Yeah, he's
just on a different level mode.
And that is all down to the presentation of him. More than the in-ring work or the promos. It's using him sparingly.
I think we also forget as well, the Brock match happened again at SummerSlam.
Sure did. That was a forklift.
And it was and when that was announced, it was we all had a massive collective groan of, again.
Yep.
Because the whole point of WrestleMania was, this is the last time we're doing it. And then Vince was like, lol, I've got nothing else. We'll do Brock again.
Yeah.
The whole setup of that feud was just, we'll do this again, shall we?
Yeah.
Yep. You haven't. Roman said, I've beaten everyone. Brock came out and said, you haven't beaten me. I was like, you did. Just a few months ago, in fact.
But now I've got a digger.
So Roman Reigns got 45 points. In second place with 71 points. So that's quite a jump up there.
Yeah.
Not only their debut in the top 10, the first time they've ever been nominated since we did the new thing in 2020.
It's got to be.
19 nominations, 7 top-level nominations. Sami
There it is.
Zayn.
Oh!
Yes! Yes! My top wrestler of the year.
Yeah, Sami Zayn, and a lot. Well, as I said, there's 7 top-level nominations in the 19 that he received overall.
So good.
That was number 2.
That was number 2.
Yeah.
Who's number 1?
Well, we'll get into that in a
I
second.
thought you were setting up for who I thought.
We'll get into who is number 1 in just a moment. But it's interesting because we were talking about this on our Patreon show that we do behind the scenes, where you were saying, that like, because me and Pete were there being like, oh yeah, Sammy's had this great year, and you were like, I don't know if it has been like this stellar year that it's been, but I think that he's the most over babyface in WWE. And
Recently,
he's a heel.
In the last 3 months, he's that. Yeah.
But I think but I think it's also from all the stuff he's done earlier in the year. The Johnny Knoxville stuff through January, like all the stuff he was doing outside of WWE to make that feud work was all Sami Zayn. That was not WWE. That was all Sami. And from the Johnny Knoxville stuff, he goes basically straight into the Bloodline storyline. So that basically is 2 things he's done this year that people have loved. I think he's had a much better year than you're perhaps giving him credit for.
He's had a great year. I love his character. He really is like one of the most empathetic storylines, characters, whatever, in wrestling right now. He's not top 5 for me. I can't point to a single match. Oh yeah, apart from the Jackass one. But I do not consider.
War Games.
War Games was good, but it was more of an angle. And actually, that wasn't a great match. It was a great emotional delivery and finish at the end. But it's weird to have someone, and I'm not saying to me, like, if you look at other wrestlers who've won this in the past or in the top 5, because I think by the time you get to top 5, you have to be ticking all the boxes. We just talked about MJF. He's wrestled very few, but the matches he has had have been outstanding. Sami Zayn is borderline valet, because he's more of just a character who performs in these in-ring segments. And so for me, I couldn't put him anywhere close to my top 5 because he doesn't satisfy the biggest part, which is you also have to have several freaking fantastic matches.
He's had all of his good matches on TV. Like, he hasn't had the big pay-per-view performance, but he's been having lots of really good matches on TV. Anecdotally speaking, I would say for Sami, and I'm looking at stats and stuff that we have for the podcast, videos that are Sami led do way better than a lot of other wrestlers that we might often lead with. So when we do the SmackDown shows, we've almost been like fallen the trap being like, okay, well, what can we say about Sami this week, because that is what wrestling fans want to talk about right now. And I think that is what has really helped Sami in the nominations this year, is that he is the thing right now. And I think, you're talking about MJF is going to do really well next year. I think Sami's going to do really well in the nominations next year. If he can have the year that everyone thinks he's going to have, there are people talking about he should be champion next year. I think he is going to do really well in nominations.
Yeah, I mean, I've spoken about Sami extensively doing the SmackDown podcast. I love everything he's doing, and I think the difference in opinion, I totally get the stance that you're coming from. For me, what makes someone a top wrestler of the year is how much do I want to see them, and I want to see Sami every week. I want to see every tiny little thing that Sami's involved in. That is the moment I see that Sami's on my screen, I'm like a meerkat. I'm like, I'm paying attention now. It is the most captivating wrestling television that I have watched, maybe ever, is the Sami Bloodline story. And that's why he's my rest of the year, because I think that he's surrounded by people that make him better. The Jey Uso performances, the Solo performances, the Roman Reigns performances, they're all great and they help Sami be better. For me, Sami has taken what could have been a very bad story and something that could have just fizzled out after a few weeks and just been like, no, you're not joining the Bloodline, give him a spear, and Sami goes off and does nothing. And he's taken it and made it into something incredible that we all want to see this massive payoff to. And we all want to see him now dethrone Roman Reigns, not through in-ring work and not through getting, but through like angles and through backstage segments and promos, which is so like unusual for WWE that this is just... It's exactly the kind of wrestling that I want to watch.
Particularly in a work rate era of wrestling that we're in. For someone to basically get into the second position on our nominations through almost backstage work and like angles alone.
It's genuinely, because his backstage segments are so good.
It's a story told through episodic programming more than in-ring wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
So I'll vote for Don Callis next year.
On to your point, just last thing I would add on that, when there's a graphic of him on Raw, I'm instantly like, oh, brilliant. Yeah.
Can't wait.
I can't wait to see that segment. But our number one wrestler for this year, returning to the top 10 after missing out last year, knocks off Bryan Danielson to win the WrestleTalk Wrestler of the Year 2022. Sami Zayn got 71 points. This wrestler got 94 points. Wow. 24 of our 34 submitters nominated for this wrestler, 11 of those had him as their top wrestler of the year. Jon Moxley is the WrestleTalk 2022 Wrestler of the Year. And I don't think you can argue against it massively, because what a year Jon Moxley has had. You talk about a guy who's carried a company on his back for all of the year, considering everything that's gone on. It's Jon Moxley.
Yeah. I think he was handed the interim title run was something that could have been very, and I mean, it kind of ended up being very like filler. And it's just like, you're holding the title until Punk comes back. We don't really need you to do much. But every single week, Moxley was wrestling and having a great match every single time. And it made that interim title run feel important in a time where the belt might not have felt important. It's called interim.
Yeah, there was every chance that he would have just felt like the guy that was holding the belt until Punk came back, and then Punk just wins the belt and just move on to the next thing. But no, I completely agree with him. Moxley made the interim title feel like the actual world championship, which is what it's supposed to feel like. It's supposed to still feel like the top title. And I think Moxley did that every single week on television.
Yeah,
I think he certainly tried. I don't think AEW did. The standout stuff for me with Moxley is early Blackpool Combat Club, the Takeshita match, the Wheeler Yuta match, which probably is one of the better matches of the whole year.
God, yeah.
He is the winner, but when you said it, Jon Moxley, we went, oh yeah, fair play, as opposed to yes, come on. And I think that's that there is an argument to say, sorry, I'm so down and negative all the time.
I might have only had that reaction because I knew.
Yeah. But I think we both did as well. You're like, oh yeah, of course.
Well, that was my expectation. I was like, number one, Jon Moxley, that makes sense. Yeah.
But if it was Sami Zayn, you'd be like, oh yes, come on.
Yeah, because I voted for Sami Zayn as my
yeah.
I wanted him to be high.
I just feel, and Moxley, so much respect to him for continually being there for the company and behaving so professionally. I didn't realize that positive masculinity could be such a thing, and I think he encapsulates it. Like, genuinely look up to the guy, right? But I think this is an award more through diligence than through standout performance.
I think he's had, like Jericho, great matches on TV when he was champion. I think the stuff that he was doing with Punk, I thought, the Punk squash match, I know a lot of people didn't like it. I loved it. And I thought it was really, really great. And I loved the match that they had at All Out as well. And I think that Moxley has been a consistently great wrestler throughout this year. Maybe not having 5-star matches, but he's been having 4.5-star matches. And he was doing that on TV. He was doing that when the company really needed that guy. He was there to do it. And maybe you're right. Like, it is through diligence more than anything. But for me, like, that is more than enough reason to have him. Because I think I was one of the nominations that gave him the full 5 points. Because I think that he has more than earned the Wrestler of the Year this year.
I mean, I don't want to agenda it, but the fact that CM Punk isn't on this list at all makes... I don't think you can... For me, I don't discount people's whole 8 months of work based on one thing they would do. I would put CM Punk definitely in the top 5.
Punk got 3 points, and I think those 3 points came from you.
Yeah, and I think obviously no one voted for him because of stuff that happened outside of the kayfabe verse, which is, if that's the parameters you take in, those aren't the parameters I take in. I think that MJF feud was fantastic. I think the Hangman Page stuff was good. Yeah, he was injured, but he was part of your favorite Moxley match bit there. Cut a hell of a promo after All Out.
I think for me, the reason that Mox is so it's kind of the opposite of MGF, where MGF has had like 6 matches all year and all of them have been incredible. I think Moxley has had a really high caliber of match all the time. It is just like 4 stars or better for the whole year.
That was part of his
every single week. Bang on. And I think the sheer number of times that he's done that has made people go like, damn, this guy's incredible.
So that argument, I think there are other people far more deserving of the consistent high in quality in ring work. To me, it does feel a bit like when you said the opposite of MJF, I think he's the opposite of CM Punk. He's the ultimate professional. He's so respected. He's done an incredible job for AEW this year. Maybe that's it. The 2 people have gone for that rather than sort of more of a flash of brilliance.
I think the other thing that would have hurt Punk in the rating, in the nominations, isn't just the brawl out stuff, but actually, he didn't wrestle a lot this year.
Yeah, the injuries, yeah.
He had the injuries, and then when he came back, he had 2 matches, and then he had the brawl out thing. So, if you look at that first half of the year, it's the MJF run, and then he's injured.
It was 5 months.
No, because that was stuffed up. Well, it was done,
Double or nothing.
No, it was done by Revolution, because then he started the feud with the Hangman Page, which people didn't particularly like, and then people didn't really like the Page feud. And then he's injured. Then he's gone. He comes back, has a squash match, loses the squash match to Moxley, then has the match at All Out, and then he's gone. So really, it is it's concentrated 2 months where people were really into Punk, and I don't think people were then into him as much afterwards. I think that might be what's hurt him, as well as all of the brawl out stuff.
It's definitely the brawl out stuff.
Oh, I think that is certainly a factor, but I also think him only having 2 strong months in a calendar year.
Because if you take out the brawl out stuff, he's in the top 5 easy.
For just those 2 months?
Well, it'd be champion.
He would have been on TV more.
He would have had the second half of the MJF feud.
Yeah, that's true. He would have done much better. Absolutely. Yeah. But that also came, he'd have been on TV and wrestling. So there it is. So that is Bryan Danielson at number 10, Jericho at number 9, Will Ospreay and Bianca Belair tied at number 7, Seth Rollins at 6th, Sheamus in 5th, MJF in 4th, Roman Reigns 3rd, Sami Zayn 2nd, and the 2022 Wrestler of the Year awards goes to Jon Moxley. Congratulations to you. Thank you all so much for the nominations. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please let us know in the comments down below, who would you have had as your Wrestler of the Year 2022? What do you think of our list as well? If you've made it this far, please do press the subscribe button. Give us a little thumbs up as well. And we will see you in the new year. We've got more content like this coming up. We've actually got awards for Best Match, Best Pay-Per-View, the Worst Match, and Worst Pay-Per-View awards as well. So if, like Ollie Davis, you want to see CM Punk more in these lists, tune in for the Worst Match of the Year.
And the best videos.
And we'll see you then. Those will be going up all across the next couple of weeks. Until
Punk
then,
was right!
I have been Luke Owen, DAD. That has been Quinnell. That has been Ollie Davis. Jam that jam.